All right, so this is the Drupal usability meeting for February 28th, 2017. We have a few people and a few topics. I think Kevin wanted to bring up a few things. Any other, or well, let's start with Kevin's. So what did you want to bring up?
So I had a couple of things I can show some progress on workflow. That has a new patch, which I'm just actually spinning up in a simplytest.me. Then I also had two kind of topics for conversation that have come up recently in my meetings at the Drupal dojo here in Austin, when I've been talking to site builders, and the topic really is Composer. The general topic is CLI, but the topic, I think the way I would phrase the question is like this. Is the increasing necessity of using Composer to build Drupal projects alienating and forcing out people who are assemblers and who don't feel comfortable in a command line interface? That's the feedback that I'm getting, or that's the general tone of the feedback that I'm getting from people. So I'd talk about, and then I also could give an update on progress of the discussions around how we deal with outside in and the libraries and the sort of getting of that onto, because there's been some good getting the stuff onto the and without interfering with the front end theme, because there's, I think, been some good progress on that issue as well, if we have time.
All right. Any other topics from others?
I've been coming up with a bunch of random questions while working on layouts ideas, but I think probably next meeting will be better to discuss all those, because there's a bunch and I'll have more of them.
Yeah. I can actually also, Emily, give you some feedback of questions that came up in my webinar when I went into the layout plugin stuff. Or you could watch the webinar. So I have, hold on one second. Let me share the issue, the low one. Shot here. So I guess I need to read it out as well, which is that the issue that we're talking about is Drupal.org node 53717. And there's a new patch in this issue, which I've spun up here on a simplytest.me. And I can show, I think I have to actually configure a workflow in order to do this. Or no, first of all, I have to enable the modules. So this in and of itself is a little bit problematic because, I guess it's because it's experimental, but the thing that I found problematic the last time was that it wasn't clear to me that I had to enable both of these, content moderation and workflow, and that I had to then go to the content type and make the content type workflowable or whatever. So I go to content type, and then I go to manage fields. I have manage moderation, and then from there, it's a little bit deep for me to know how to get there and do that. But so I at very least need to document that well. But that's not what this particular issue is doing. What this particular issue is doing is it has a patch here that Tim Millwood just put in, which is awesome. I put in a design, a few comments before previous, and basically the patch is doing this. So if I add content, add an article, give it a title, There's really a lot of latency on the load of the new WYSIWYG with CK, I've noticed as well. It's something that we're going to have to look into. So, and then when I go down to here, we can see we now have content moderation state draft. And then when you change the state, I see select a new state. And when I change the state to published, it tells me what's going to happen. Publish when saved. So when I change it to draft when saved. So the improvement of this over the previous situation is that before, as you can see in this image, before it just said moderation state, publish, create new draft, and archive. And there's two problems with this. First of all, the problem was that these are the transition states, right? But this is not an action button, right? So we really just need the states, and the transitions are what's going to happen. And then the other thing that I heard after having a lengthy discussion with some people in the Acquia support team whose knowledge base is using this module, was that it's one of the things that they don't know is when they open up a node, what state is it in now? It's not clear. It's not at all clear to them. So, so having this current moderation state draft helps that problem, or whatever the current moderation state is. Then we see which state we're going to, which states are available to go to, and then it also tells us what is going to happen when save is triggered. So that's pretty much it.
So my only feedback would be that every other form element has a title above that pertains to the form element. And here, the current moderation state is not what you're setting in the form element. The form element sets the future moderation state, not the current moderation state. So it does not align well with the labels of every other form element on the form.
That is a good point. And yeah, that is a very good point. Actually, that does not match the design. I just noticed that. I had glossed over that, but I just noticed that the design calls for not showing the current, not showing the state, but showing the default, which is select new state. Now you have current, draft, and then select new. Whereas in the actual patch, it's, but wait a minute. Having said that, does it start on that to open the node?
It starts on your existing state.
On the one that's been chosen, because there is a state. It's not going to show.
There's always a state.
There's always a state.
That's why that's not select new something. Yeah.
So what that suggests is that we do need to add another label above here that says select a new state.
Or new state, basically, because it's a select. You don't need to tell people it's a select. I think it's new state. I think.
Yeah.
That would be consistent with the rest of the form.
Yep, I totally agree. Okay, I'll write that feedback into this issue and pass that back. And I think that should be a relatively easy change to make.
So we looked at last week the issue that made the published status a checkbox. Is this replacing that or overriding that, or are the two related to each other?
This is a really good point because work is going on in parallel on these two things, and in the event that the user does not have content moderation on or workflow module turned on, they still need to have an experience that's that is good and that has some of those characteristics that we're talking about. I think the difficult thing comes in is when this patch goes in, the other patch that you're talking about happens, how does this play with that? How do those two things work together? And that create further confusion. So maybe we need to sub-issue to look at that or something.
Yeah, I'm looking at the number for the other issue. Boop, 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 boop. I'm not finding it, but
I think I have it in my dashboard. Hold on. Look.
Yeah. So there. So it's 2068063. Change this save and keep unpublished buttons to publish checkbox and an included save button. That one. Yeah.
What did you say? 208?
No, 2068063. And
I haven't looked at.
It's actually cross-referenced with the other one. So. Yeah, it is cross-referenced. Yes. So yeah, so at least people are sort of aware of the two issues at once. But yeah, they need to work together somehow. Like if you apply this patch on that patch, and then it's problematic. It's not good.
Yeah, I agree. Although essentially you have this now in the current node. It's just where it goes, right? I mean, so you have in the information, right? It's just that it's not near the actual save button. So yeah, there could be potential conflicts. We need to think through. Maybe I'll just run up a quick of what it might look like with both enabled, and sort of work through some of those problems and post something into that as well. Yeah. Incidentally, one of the other things that came up in talking to the support team, or actually in putting together some recommendations, I actually went through their process, and I behaved like an author and actually authored some content and went through their workflow. And one of the inherent problems of the workflow is that I think that people overload it. They put too many states and transitions in. So maybe we text for the workflow creators to keep it as simple as possible or something. I don't know. People tend to be overly complex. Okay, so I have an action item on that. Did anybody else have any other comment on this particular patch or the other one?
Nope.
Okay, cool. So do we want to talk about the CLI issue?
Sure.
When I said it, when I mentioned it first, Emily, I noticed you nodding. Is this something that you've actually lost in the wild already?
Yeah, so actually me and Brian Mixologic were talking about it at the summit, because he's trying to figure out what can be done, at least on the Drupal.org side, to try and make it easier for people. And either tying things into Update Manager or improving a packaging system so it's easier for site builders.
Is that like a non-trivial thing, Gabor? Because that was my first thought. Just make it a module that it just goes and automatically runs a composer script and gets the stuff instead of whatever it normally does.
Well, you need to have the composer installed, which is in itself a thing that you need to get through.
Right, because you've got to have the composer file in
the right place and run through the right PHP and whatever, all those things. So I agree it's a barrier. I don't know what to do about it, honestly. So there's like tooling with like packaged together Drupal virtual server solutions and stuff like that we can suggest people to try. I'm not using any of those, but there are some solutions that you can just plop into your virtual computer, and it already has all the tools. But you need to have a virtual computer, so
Yeah. At some point, you have to get into and you have to configure your machine with some commands and install stuff, and we definitely take a big, large step out of the world of I'm just an assembler that doesn't know anything about command line or code, and into the world.
Yeah, well, all of front end went that way as well, right? With compiled CSS and all of the other fun things.
Yeah.
So everybody's going there, unfortunately. I agree.
Yeah.
Hello.
And I think the
UX meeting.
Yeah, we want to get more people involved, and we are discussing how the tools are a barrier to that.
Yeah. So that one of the interesting learnings for me, just to sort of like give a little bit more color, the two people who I was talking to about this, who were essentially kind of complaining about it, these are not people who are like, novices who know nothing about computers, or who are just, only know how to point and click. These are people who are people my age or a little bit older, in their 50s, right? With histories of working in the semiconductor industry or in the software industry on projects that involve Java, complex languages, who are doing Drupal now because either they were, either they or were laid off, or have changed careers, or their company went out of business, and so they're not non-technical people, but they're finding it difficult. What they liked about Drupal was that it is assemblable, and now things have become much more difficult for them. They don't want to have to, use a command line interface to have to work with Drupal. They liked being able to configure it. I'm sure there are many, 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 many more of those people around the world.
Are they using shared hosting, or what are they doing for that?
Yeah, some of them are using shared hosting. I talked a little bit about hosting. I was, because I was interested in digging in on what they they were doing for their local environment, whether they were using Dev Desktop or MAMP, or or whether they were using like virtual machines. Some people who I've met at these meetups have been using, some of the younger ones, or people who came from a front end background, are using machine stuff. But I think most of them are using Dev Desktop or something similar, and kind of expect it to be a configurable experience and not a command line experience. The hosting,
I know.
It's bagged. Some are shared and some are dedicated.
Okay. I know one suggestion that Mixologic floated was having something kind of like a local app locally do your updates, so that you would have Composer installed locally, and you wouldn't have to go to the command line. The app would manage it and then do the push to your hosting.
Yeah.
The way to have
I think that
built out.
That seems like the only sort of promising kind of avenue there. Like, it's something that's not fixed through Drupal, but has to be fixed via some kind of something like Dev Desktop or Mamper. There's another project called Mixture, which does kind of similar stuff with like more NPM-based things. But it's like a desktop application. You download it, and it's basically NPM stuff for you, but through a desktop. So you don't have to know how to install Node.js and all that kind of stuff. I think this is something that we maybe should escalate to, I don't know, somewhere. Gabor, where should we escalate this to?
I don't know.
Larry Garfield?
Why? I don't know. It's not like he's personally responsible.
Yeah. But if somebody's going to do something like that, if somebody's going to make a fix that does add some kind of functionality, it's going to have to be somebody who kind of intimately knows Composer, right? Probably.
Yeah, I know Ryan's interested, so he might just continue being a good person to talk to since he's been working on that space for D.O. So.
That's Ryan
Aslett, Mixologic.
All right. Cool. I will hopefully. What's his D.O? Mixologic, or I thought that was his company. So, all right. So anyway, this is something that maybe we could. This is something that really should be a serious topic of conversation at DrupalCon as well. Thanks, Emily. We might want to consider that. Bringing together some people talking about.
What was the trigger? I missed it, of course. What are you specifically discussing?
The trigger is, in conversations that I'm having at meetups that I'm going to here in Austin, I get a lot of feedback from people that, Composer is difficult to understand and use. And Drupal is becoming less assembled because you have to get into a command line interface in order to just do things. And, one of the things that I didn't mention actually is that, people have said, I can't even just install. I mean, it's one thing if you have to use Composer to build a distribution, but some modules cannot even be installed without Composer. The module itself, it can only be, like, for example, entity or address field module, but cannot be installed without Composer because it has to go and get a whole bunch of external libraries and pull them in.
Well, Drupal core needs that too, yes. So yeah, so if you ask some people, it's the good thing because you don't ship those libraries with the modules, and they can be independently hosted and updated and downloaded and managed and whatever. And it's less of a hassle to manage them, but easier to find those dependencies and work with them. And so I think architecturally it makes a lot of sense, but the tooling wise it makes things much harder. Yes, fully agree.
Right. I think it just needs to be my concern. I totally agree. I think I definitely see the value of the packaging, especially for something like address field module, where the direct benefit that you're getting is that these libraries are being constantly updated because they involve things that change. Governments change the way that they do addresses, standards bodies change things around to be updated. But I think my fear is that this kind of spot, that we're like, oh, isn't this great? We now have Composer, and then all of the people, and then a lot of people are kind of left in the dust, and we sort of missed that fact and didn't create anything for them. So
So are these the downsides of getting off the island in a bit? Oh yeah, well,
yeah,
I
think
remember
that's
maybe it was Drupal 5 or 6 that the thing there was poor man's cron. You need cron, and then I had to enter something command line to run cron so that my whatever caches, URLs, whatever were updated, and that was my first where I got peeved off that I had to go outside of Drupal to make Drupal work, and now there's more stuff outside of Drupal needed to make Drupal work. The last couple of times I started to build, I wanted to run D8 head locally. I forgot about Composer. Oh, of course, it's not there. Yeah, okay. Looking up instructions, typing in literally things in the command line. Yeah, okay, seems to work. Yeah, that's it's relatively uncomfortable if you're used to the clicking you can do with Drupal.
And I think that poor man's cron is an example of, that the community saw that this was a negative thing and reacted and adapted and made it easy for people. And I think that
pulled it
has
inside, yeah.
here as well. And there has to be some kind of step that's taken. I mean, like Gabor said, it's you can't move it into core in the same way, but we need to. It can't just be sort of like shrugged off and ignored. Somebody's got to do something about it.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. The only other issue that I had, does anybody else have any other issues any other things that they wanted to bring up, or?
I think Manjit wanted to.
Yeah, so I have pinged one issue, Roy. So I have commented on that issue. So that is regarding the quick edit module. So let me bring that again. This is it.
He pasted the link in the chat here.
Yes. So that is regarding to reduce the animation for the quick edit. Right. So I have observed one issue in that. So I have added that in comment also. So can you review that once? So after that, I will create a new issue for that because that is not relevant to the animation of that quick edit module.
I don't see that. Where's the? Is it in the Slack, Roy?
No, I'll post it in Slack. It's in the Hangouts chat.
Yes. Oh, I see it here. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. I think what Manjit did is review the latest patch there, removing some of the delays, and I think he noticed something else happening that's not necessarily part of this patch, and he would like to know if we should open a separate issue for that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it's very likely that there is something else going on there. I know there's a lot of complexity in this particular.
The problem is that.
I'm looking at the video right now of it. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I feel is a little bit outdated about this, and Manjit, maybe you can tell me whether you agree with this, but I think that when we first designed and built tool, assumption was that it would be jarring for people to have the tool appear in one place and then disappear and reappear elsewhere. So that's why it moves around. Subsequent designs in all kinds of other products have proven that wrong. Many other editors simply have the tool just pop up and appear wherever you stick your cursor. So personally, I feel that we could dispense with the animation altogether. We could just have it appear in the new place. I understand that that's more of a major change than this, but I wanted to do for a while anyway, because that animation is really annoying to a lot of people. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Let's see, where am I? Oh, I was not muted. Just checking if I was. I do think that we've been quite explicit, and look, it's animating into view now for you to see that it's happening. So we may be we may have been, in that sense, possibly over designing the behavior of this thing a bit. Yeah. Which is natural, right? Because it's new, and no, but it's yay. And maybe this is, I mean, this is the stuff that an Amazon knows, right? That they, over the next 4 months, they will reduce the animation by 1 millisecond every day, so that at the end there's no animation anymore, and nobody ever noticed that it animated, and now doesn't notice that it doesn't animate anymore. So, but we don't do that. We have maybe every 6 months to tweak those things, possibly. And I think it's very interesting and worthwhile to consider doing that. So that's my off-the-cuff thought there.
Yeah, sure, makes sense.
Adjusting the animation is great. Maybe we also, maybe Roy has a point that we don't want to make everything change immediately for people, but maybe we phase it out over time.
Do we need any specific action on the actual issue, or do we want to create that new issue?
Yeah. So the new issue that you want to create, Manjit, is to examine that there's another cause for the underlying problem with the animation. Was that it, or was it just around the interaction itself?
Yeah, it's around the animation. So I'll create a new one and ping into Slack.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, they could be definitely simplified. Right now they're CSS animations, right? Or are we using JavaScript for that?
No, I think right now we have a pure CSS for the animation.
Uh-huh. Right. Okay. Yeah, I think anything we can do to simplify that.
Okay, let's do that. I think the thing you found, Manjit, is not necessarily impacting the patch itself that we have in that issue now. So it looks like maybe the reduced animation delays issue itself is, I don't know, ready to go, or still needs review maybe.
No, I think it's good to go. So that issue that I found is completely different from the from the animation. Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool. So we can get that other one out the door.
Yeah.
Yep. So anything else that I can work on after this issue?
Oh, certainly. So there's, hold on, let me just really quick hop over here to my dashboard. There's a couple of issues that have, you know, that have some similar stuff going on. So Aaron Christian is working on the Throbber one, and there's the.
What about move the user link to the right, but then have the sub items in a separate?
Oh yeah, that's a good one, Roy. Issue is
2754489. Pasted in Slack.
Yes. And interestingly, yeah. So the so this is about taking the user link, right, and moving it from where it is right now in the UI, which is just appended to the end of of whichever links are in the toolbar. So let me share my screen.
Okay.
So here, see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So here we see admin, right? Experience is for users is to have the admin link over here. That
The username.
or the not the admin link. Yeah, the user link, the link to their own account. Like 90% of websites on the internet put your account link upper left-hand corner. So that's where people are generally looking for it. So that's where we should probably put it. But the question comes in when so the patch already, there is a patch already that does that. But the problem with the patch is that so while in the toolbar in this state, user link here, we can float the items to the right that are under that link, these items, view profile, edit, log out. When you do this, then your user link is here, upper left, and then all of these items are all the way the heck over here, right? It out, and I think that this is a genuine issue. Somebody suggested float this, over to this side for the user link. But the problem with that is, what if we're in edit mode? And oops, I don't have edit anymore on this particular site. But anyway, what if our settings tray opens up, and then we also have that tray over on this side? So what I suggested to Roy in the issue was drop down here for that, which we had done in other. There's actually code that exists for this. If you go back and look at the issue for responsive preview module. When we worked on responsive preview module, if you were familiar with that issue, what that did was that it added a responsive preview button here over on the left-hand side, and it had a drop-down that showed you the various viewports that you could preview them. So both the button and the I might be saying left when I mean right, because I'm totally dyslexic. Please correct me if I've done that already. I'm saying upper right-hand side. So anyway, we had a drop-down for that. So code to create a drop-down from toolbar on the right-hand side exists in responsive preview module. And we could create a and put these items in that drop down. The user needs to see their view profile, edit profile, logout stuff. Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Manjit?
Yes, yes. So I'll check with the issue.
So what is responsive preview module? That is what it's called. It doesn't change the name of that. Do you recall?
I think that was it.
Name. It's called responsive theme preview, not responsive preview. And actually, here isn't. There is a screenshot of it, so I'm going to share. I'm just going to share one more time real quick, so I can show you that. It's this.
Right.
So we had this button here for responsive, and then we had this drop down that popped down here. So there's some which may or may not be helpful, Manjit, but if it is helpful, you know, certainly you could use it. Yeah, that's that.
Could you post this to the issue, Kevin?
Yeah.
I have found that. Just a second.
I will put it into the issue.
Okay. Thanks.
This is the one, right? I have posted it on Slack.
That's a
link to the that screenshot.
Responsive theme preview. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
As a concept module.
Sure, Kevin. I'll check with that issue.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
So yesterday the new demo theme design people had another meeting. Maybe good to know that from the long list of 6, we created a short list of 2 people we want to have a short conversation with, so that we can then decide who we want to invite to design the theme. So that's an update there. Let's see, anything else?
Roy, I wanted to go to that meeting yesterday, and then I went to Slack and I looked in the new theme design chat. I couldn't see anybody. I think I missed it because I didn't know when it was scheduled, and then I also can't seem to find where the designs are posted for the.
Okay. Let me check that. Let me check that. I'll get back to you on that. You should be in the loop.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So new theme for core or something?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Just as experimental.
Mm-hmm.
That are out of the box.
Okay. Anything else, people? Otherwise,
That's it for me.
Yeah. Me too.
Nothing from my side.
I think that was Emily saying she hadn't anything else either.
Yeah, Prabhu,
yeah.
Sorry.
Hello, hi.
Yeah,
Prabhu?
Manjit.
Yeah, Someone is saying something. Prabhu says something shy. Seems like the volume is very, very low.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Prabhu.
No, but I'm not sure if it's Gabor or some background sound. I don't know.
No, I think it was Prabhu, but very, very low volume. Yeah.
Okay. We're done, folks. Let's hang up.
Prabhu, if you had a question, throw it into Slack and we'll see if we can answer it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks everyone.
Okay.
For
So, bye.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Bye.